the better. Cool. Now we're live. So, welcome to the podcast. I am here with my good friend, Aaron Beandream. I'll give him a little bit of introduction. He's been booking artists in Boston for many, many years. Could be about 10 years?
7.
7 years?
In March, which is funny because it stopped in March.
He's
began in March.
Began in March, okay.
Ended in March.
Pandemic. Yeah, that's true. Okay,
it's
cool.
Kind of wacky. It's like exactly 7 years.
Exactly 7 years.
Yeah.
You've booked like a lot of artists from like artists like Moon Boots, Zimmer, to like some of the like more bass heavy artists like Govinda, and I don't know. You can name a few more.
Sure. Some big ones are RJD2 is probably one of my proudest.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Crystal Method twice. RJD2 twice. I did Louis the Child.
Okay.
That was a big one. That was their first Boston play. Sold out the downstairs first show at Middle East. And then as in my own, that's my own company, but as a talent buyer, big ones are Billie Eilish. I booked Billie Eilish first in Boston.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Sophie Tucker.
Where'd you book her?
Sonia, before we had our liquor license.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, so when we opened Sonia with no liquor license, I went all pop because we had to do younger demos.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many pop acts in that room, because that's how it got branded in the beginning, and names like Billie Eilish went through it.
Wow.
Yeah, Sophie Tucker is another. They're huge now. They were a Millie's upstairs. Tiny.
When did Billie Eilish like blow up? Was it like a couple months after you booked her?
Yeah, I mean, this was the first tour, so she wasn't really explosive like she is now. This was the first run, but she already had a really dedicated, loyal. I mean, that show, Lil Peep was the first sold out show at Sonia, but that was the first like blowout.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this girl's going to be big. And then, I mean, I think she played House of Blues shortly after that.
Holy shit.
It was a big jump, yeah.
Did you connect with her? I mean, like, obviously she had a manager and stuff like that. Did she have, like, the same manager when she came by, or you just, like, shifting people? And
So, how this happened, I'm wondering if I should use her name, not. I won't use the agent's name because I'm not sure if she would want that information publicly, since we're talking live, and I don't know the rules about that, honestly.
Yeah.
I should.
Yeah.
But what it was is her agent at the time, who I believe she's still with because I've talked to that agent since, she called me and she's like, I have this really, really hot act, really buzzy, like, we gotta get her in your room. Sonia's the room. And I was just like, okay, like, I get fed that a lot. It's kind of hard to tell if it's true or not.
Yep.
But then what did it for me is she's on Paradigm, which is the biggest agency, but they've been sucking up all the other ones.
Yep.
So Windish was a really big agency owned by Tom Windish, and it got absorbed into Paradigm. And she called me and said, I'm sitting down with Tom Windish and our new client, Billie Eilish, right now, routing a tour. So when I heard that, that's what signaled to me, this is a big act. Yeah, they know something that I don't know, which is usually the record label stuff that I don't know that they know.
Yeah.
And they can't tell me, but like you can kind of pick it up in the subtext of what they're saying, that they just got a huge record deal.
And she said that on purpose too, right?
Like, that's why she called me too instead of email. So I could tell by what she was telling me that this was big, but they just didn't really know yet exactly how big, but they knew it was gonna be big.
Yeah. And
that's when I was like, okay, I'll take the shot. Ended up sending a really low offer, which I also won't say, but when I tell people in the business, they're like, you booked Billie Eilish for that little amount of money, and I'm like, no one knew yet, we didn't know.
Yeah.
She ended up making a lot more. Obviously the deals step up as you sell tickets, but the actual guarantee was very small.
Yep.
So that's something that I think about once. It's actually on my resume that I booked Billie Eilish.
That's a good resume. And then, like, you don't have to say the number, but you do a guarantee, and what else do you do to confirm? Like, it's a guarantee, and then you're like X amount after this many sales? Or?
Sure, yeah. So there's a few different deals you can do. There is just a straight door deal, which is you just split X%. But yeah, it steps up. So usually it'll be 50% from $1, 60% after 100 tickets, 65%, whatever, and then 70% at sellout. The scaling all depends on your ticket price, your expenses, but that's the basic. And then, so you'll have that door deal, or you'll have just a flat fee. I'm going to give you X dollars, guarantee. You get that no matter what, if we do well or poorly. And then there's the verses, which is pretty much the industry standard as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong. I don't work for Live Nation. But what it seemed for me when I really was booking, started getting into it big, was it was all versus deals. So it's a guarantee versus the split. Whatever's greater to the artist, they get. So for Billie, she had a very small guarantee versus a door split. So she ended up making, triple what her guarantee was. Once it sold out, she went into percentage. And then the old school deal, which I really only use for my own business because I have so many expenses when I throw a show, versus at the Middle East, those expenses are absorbed by the venue, so you can send those aggressive door deals. Whereas a promoter, I do back end, so it's a guarantee plus all of the expenses that I have to cover as a promoter, and then a promoter profit, which is a big no-no. Agents don't like that nowadays, but if you have a brand like me, like with Binary or Beandream, I have to get paid for that.
Built in.
Right, yeah. So I explain that to agents. I said, if this is my show, I'm going to pay myself as a promoter. If you want it to be an in-house deal, I can do that. It'll be a better offer, but you won't get my brand. So that's how I make the distinction. So that deal is their guarantee, all the expenses, my promoter profit, and then I give them a back end of that.
What do you tell them about your brand that gets them to be like, I want to use your brand?
Sure. Well, Middle East...
While you're talking, I'm just going to check this to make sure everything's right.
Yeah, for sure. So the Middle East is historically a rock venue. It does all genres, but predominantly rock. Electronic music is fairly new to the Middle East as a whole. So me being a promoter who did dance nights before I started working there, so when I came in, I already had relationships with these agents and buying shows as Beandream, not as a Middle East talent buyer. So basically, if it's my show, then they know that it's a Beandream show. But then obviously, as my career grew and I booked more shows, some of the agents would be confused. They're like, well, why did I get, this really competitive deal for my other act that wasn't electronic, but now the DJ acts, you have, the back end deal, which they don't like those. Promoter profit, room fees added in. They're like, what's all this? Like, you're renting the room, you work there. And I'm like, well, no, if I buy the show as Beandream, I have to rent the room, and what I provide is 7 years of a brand. Specifically, if it's Binary, a lot of them come to me too. So like if it's Binary, they know the brand, they know the party. That's what they're paying me to do. So yeah, it's marketing, it's promoting, it's a brand, and a lot of agents understand the value of a good promoter, especially with acts at the level that I book because they're smaller. They feel big to me sometimes, Middle East downstairs, but it's really a smaller room, so they know a smaller act needs that nurturing in the beginning, and they can value it a lot. So once I explain that to an agent, then they can decide, and 99% of the time they want my brand. They want to pay, they want to take less money to know that it's going to get handled well. Not that in-house shows at the Middle East aren't handled well. It's just different. If you know from throwing shows, if you throw a DJ in a room, it doesn't necessarily mean people are coming. You have to nurture it. And they know that. And I have a track record of doing that and doing it before I was a talent buyer at the Middle East. So that's pretty much how it goes. I've only gotten pushback on it once, and I actually caved and gave them an in-house deal and made no money on a sold-out downstairs show. No money. I even told the tour manager how little money I made, and he was like really upset. Because I was like, yeah, just so you know, like this could have been even better, but I did it to get this act in here because I love the act, but I'm making no money and you had no production. Like they didn't let me buy extra stuff that I do for my shows, like hire a VJ or bring in extra sound. You know, in-house deals don't have that.
Yeah, totally.
But the agent was like, "No, you can't spend all this extra money." I'm like, "But that's the brand. That's what I want to do with the show because the show needs it."
Yep.
But he wouldn't. He was like, "Nope, I've never seen a deal like this from you before. Like this is BS." And I was just like, all right, fine." But you know, it was a sold out downstairs show with no visuals, no extra sound. You know, it was a great show nonetheless, but it could have been a lot better.
Sure. Did you ever work with that guy again?
The agent?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big agent. I have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to.
Cool. So, like, do you think, like, doing that really, like, benefited your booking ability with him? Like, did it, like, he's, like, kind of, like, thank you, or?
Yeah, I got sent the act again. He came to me because he knows that I'm good with DJ acts. The act had played the Sinclair, which is not great for DJ acts.
Yeah.
So he actually came to me because he wanted me to do it at the Middle East.
Yep.
Specifically. And then he sent it to me again. Obviously the show's not going to happen now, but he did send it to me again, and I did send him not as great a deal, and he didn't really push back on it too much.
Okay.
He was like, "Oh, why is this different?" And I was like, "Because of all the reasons I just told you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "If you want me to do the show, this is how I want to do it." And he was like, "Okay."
Yeah, you did a good job last time.
Exactly. We raised the ticket price a little bit to still get them, you know, the money they want, but also add these things that I think are important to shows like that and pay myself as a promoter.
Yeah.
Since I'm risking my own money.
All right, cool. And so, like, every type of show now, you always do like a VJ. What else do you do? Like, what's your specific thing that you do?
Sure. So, a flyer starts with a flyer. You know, I have my own graphic designers that are different than the Middle East.
Yep.
Like the Binary brand is its own graphic designer, separate than other shows that I do.
Yep.
It's actually a guy in Ireland. So I think flyers are important.
Yep.
And then VJ almost always. I sadly will cut it if the show's not selling well.
Sure.
That's just a thing you have to do as a promoter. But
Yeah, so that's the flexibility one.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
plan to. You
Yeah.
know, I send Evan, shout out Vcash.
Yeah, what up?
I send him all of my confirmed shows like once a month, or he'll hit me up and I'll be like, hold these.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll tell you closer to the date if I want it or not. Or these ones I definitely want you. Even if I'm taking a digger, I need you to be there. You know, Binary specifically, I'll lose a ton of money, but still have him there, you know. And he's good with it. He'll work with me, you know, where he'll take less if he knows I'm taking a hit, and I'll pay him more if I'm doing well. The sound, I don't know if people are going to like this, but I don't love the extra sound thing. But I feel like I've sort of been forced to do it a few times, which is fine. I'm not against it, but I don't think it should be a thing that every show has.
Totally.
Specifically in Sonya, I'll just talk about that room to not get muddy. But like the sound system in Sonya is
great.
Incredible.
Yeah,
it's
it's
D&B. It's custom. It's an indoor line array in a 350 cap room. I mean, we wanted that sound system as a reach, and we figured ownership was going to want to spend this much, and we'd meet in the middle. And they just got we were like, this is the best you can do. I mean, you're talking over $100,000 sound system in there. And I think when you add extra sound in that room, I'll leave it to that room alone at the Middle East. I don't think it's good. It doesn't make any sense to me. But to get back to where we were going, sometimes extra sound in production. The support.
Do you do it because of, like, just being able to say that you're bringing an extra sound? Is that it?
I have.
Okay.
I have. And then I work with other promoters sometimes who demand it.
Okay.
Which is fine. That's why I'm trying to be very careful about this conversation, because I know it's a big thing in the music world, right? It's a sound system culture, which I love. I'm not hating on that at all. I just think it's kind of silly that it's become this, like,
it's gotta
as
be
big as
best.
it is. Yeah, and I'm just like, well, you know, it's still a professional sound system in a venue. Like, it's okay, guys. You don't need to be blasted in the face. It's kind of over the top sometimes.
I kind of feel the same way about, like, sound, and, like, I love good quality sound. I really feel it. It's amazing, but there's so many other aspects that go into a good night. The artist, the type of crowd that you bring in, like the video, all these like little nuances, and when you just focus on good quality sound for maybe the nerds out there, like the sound nerds, it's not the greatest thing. But even though you have good sound and certain people don't understand, they still can feel it. But like, yeah, I can. For me, I can totally agree. Like, sound doesn't have to be everything. Like, it's all the experience is like so many little details, in my opinion. And yeah, and sound is usually one of the biggest details, but it doesn't have to put sound on top of sound just to make people feel like that's I'm gonna feel the bass that much more. Or whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which I get. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but especially working at the Middle East and not just doing dance nights and understanding like a full band
Hmm.
on a stage and like working on the sound in Sonya. For anyone who's been to Sonya, you've seen the evolution. It's still not even done being soundproof,
Yeah.
but actually hearing every different type of music in a room that had no sound dampening or work or anything on a good sound system made me realize, how important all that stuff is. And it's not just about the sound system. It's
Yeah.
about, the soundproofing, the curtains. Like, there's so many little things. And then a band, you need a full range of sound. And some of these
Yep.
systems are just so bass heavy, which is fine. Again, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's like you put a band on it, it sounds like shit.
Yeah. Totally.
So it's like that the whole thing with the sound system and the over the top bass, I think, is a little bit much in some situations.
Yep.
But I have obviously, I've done it, but I felt pressured to do it when I
Yeah.
didn't really want to, which I
Yeah.
think is kind of silly.
I feel like brands, and we're talking Boston brands, like Resonate, that's kind of their thing where it's like they're doing bass music, so those bass people are like kind of coming out.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
Which I get, which is why I was trying to be very careful about how I talked about it, because I
Yeah.
don't think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think they're wrong for doing it. I love what they do.
Yeah.
And their audience loves what they do too.
Yeah.
But like, if you walk down there, it's fucking intense, dude.
Oh my god.
Which is what that crowd wants. So they're totally satisfying that, and they've created that culture.
Yeah.
And they're great at that. I don't want it to sound like I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's just like I've walked down there so many times and turned right around because
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just like,
too
what
much.
the fuck is that?
It's too much. Yeah.
It's a little too much, but if that's what you want, then it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But seeing as many shows and acts as I have, walking down to a show like that it's its own thing.
Yeah, it's intense vibe.
It's intense, right? And I'm not necessarily there. I'm a house groove,
Yeah.
chill lounge sort of vibe these days. When I was younger,
That's
I would have loved
everything
it.
about it. Yeah.
I would have
totally.
loved it,
Yeah.
and I loved them when they're Mass EDMC and all that. I was
Yep.
super into it, and that's why I still book some of those bass acts, because I still appreciate
Yeah.
bass music and like it. But do I need to be badgered over the head with the bass?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but that's not wrong.
It works for a certain. You're not the ideal client, right? So like the ideal client for them is maybe someone that's younger, that's really searching for that, and loves like just to go to a show and just maybe get a little spun, or maybe not, but or just really feel that bass. And like you see those like certain people, they love to stand next to the bass speaker, and that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
their thing. There's like, and they're looking for not just the sound, but they want to feel it. They want to feel like the vibration.
Right.
Yeah.
So that actually just reminded me. So do you remember, or did you go to Detroit Swindle downstairs for Together Fest a few years ago?
I didn't go. No.
Absolutely unbelievable. Or not Detroit Swindle. Fuck. What is the name I'm trying to think of?
Gary Chandler?
It was, yeah, with Carrie. They played before. But anyway, my only thing was they had Nick Binary, Sonic Beating,
Yeah.
do the sound.
Yep.
I don't know what it was, but I don't know what the system was, but I stood front and center for that whole thing in front of a stack.
Yep.
And nothing was distorted. It wasn't over the top, but it definitely had a lot more oomph
Yep.
than the normal system. So I think that's more where I'm at, is how do you get that full range and that little extra, but it's not overwhelming. I think that's the true beauty of good sound system and setting up a room correctly,
Totally.
which he's like a savant with that sort of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize what the system was. I have no idea.
So they brought in a specific system for that?
Yeah, just for that show, and it was unbelievable. Like I
Yeah.
was right in front of it, but you wouldn't know if you were standing in front of it or in the back of the room. It sounded exactly the same.
So that's what's more important is like being able to like calibrate the room that you're in. It's not just bringing extra stuff. It's like doing the right speaker set for the room and specific towards that type of music too. And like that's where a really good like I don't know, a really good sound engineer can be like, hey, this is what this like music needs, and this is kind of the style and the aesthetic, and it's gonna bring the right vibe.
Exactly.
So yeah, instead of just being like, let's bring out the big guns and like just drown them in sound, and they're gonna enjoy that too.
Right, of course.
But,
yeah, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not hating on that at all. I think it's great.
Yeah,
It's just not.
It's a style.
It is. It's just not where I'm at.
Yeah. So I want to actually, because we jumped right in from Billie Eilish, but
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's cool. For the people out there that have like they're thinking about like getting more into maybe booking acts or music. So just to go down, like what's your journey? How'd you get started like booking acts?
Get started like Beandream or like Talent Buyer?
Booking acts, yeah, Beandream right from the beginning.
Sure, yeah. So I moved to Boston. I was living in DC for 6 months ish, but before that, I'm from Maine, small town.
Okay.
So I came to Boston young. I turned 18 in Boston, so young, excited. I was taking a break in between high school and college to sort of figure out life stuff more than school. That was more important at the time. So I started going out a lot, basically.
Yeah.
Hitting the city, hitting shows. And then once I turned 21 and was back in school, my brain sort of naturally always tries to figure out how things work when I like do stuff a lot. So I started going out to shows, and I just genuinely was very curious about how does a show get thrown? Who does it? Like, what is the process? How does these, experiences that I'm having and loving, how are they made? How does it work? How's the sausage made?
Yeah.
So it was actually Tien, who I was just telling you about, who lived in this neighborhood.
Cool.
Shout out to Tien, and then Nate Alameda, Bay Rao.
Yeah.
And Mikey
Shout out.
Maggs. Yeah, Mikey Maggs. What up? I forget. I think it was a mutual friend through my buddy Pete. Also, shout out. And we went to Western Mass to a party, and they were DJing like in this house party in the basement in Amherst. And this is when like
Was Nate DJing or just all of them?
both of them
Okay.
back and forth. And this was like Mass EDMC Amherst, like
Okay.
when that was all happening strong. So I was going out to Amherst, and they were just completely, that scene was blowing up there. They were DJing, and I was like, you know what? I've been like thinking about doing one of these. If I did, would you guys DJ? And they were like, get out of here. Like, you're never going to do that.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And then I just tried it. I just was, I threw a party on Tuanua. I lived with an Irish guy at the time who was also a DJ. He sort of pushed me. He was like, I've thrown a party. He did a St. Patrick's Day party at an Irish pub and blew it out. So he's like, there's money to be made. I like sort of know how to do it. If you know acts and like you got a lot of friends, like you should just try it.
Yeah.
And he actually got me into On Tuanua. Yeah. On Tuanua was the first one.
That was across Middlesex, right?
No. That was in Fenway.
No, it's in Fenway. Yeah, I think it's something different.
He knew the owner, Kevin Trainer, who owns the Phoenix Landing.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're Irish, and so he's like, I can get you a night there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no freaking way. So I did, and I got Nate and Mags on board.
What day was it? Was it a weekday?
Oh man, I want to say it was a Thursday, but he might have gotten me a weekend.
Yeah.
Which was shocking.
Weekends are really hard to get.
They are.
As a booker.
It could have been a Wednesday or Thursday. I'd have to look. The reason I'm confused on why is because it did so well, to bring the story back.
Yeah.
So I booked them. They had 2 rooms at the time. So
Yeah.
I booked them in the front room, and I knew they were going to bring a ton of people from Amherst because
Yep.
this was the time literally where you put a DJ playing EDM and like just hundreds of people would come because
Yeah.
it was just bubbling up. Facebook was getting like, back when event pages mattered, you made an event page and invited people and people showed up.
Yeah, they totally did.
Like that was a thing. So I booked a guy from Italy because it was March, so Winter Music Conference was happening, and he actually reached out to me. I don't even know how I got my info because
What's his name?
Silk. And he said, I'm gonna be in the area. It might have been a group or something because I hadn't even booked shows yet. But he actually reached out to me. I had no idea who he was. And he goes, I'm going to be in Miami for Winter Music Conference. I'm trying to get gigs. Do you want me to come up to Boston? And I was like, I'm actually throwing like my very first party. Like, yeah. So he was in the main room and Mags and Nate were in the front, and it was completely packed.
Yep.
Completely nailed it on the first try, which is ridiculous because this business is so difficult and so hard.
So volatile.
I just struck gold. I don't know how, but I'll tell you, the feeling that night is what I've been going after for the rest. You know, and you throw a successful party. But the first one, and I was like, holy shit, I can actually do this, and I want to keep doing it. So then I did an Irish themed one around St. Patrick's Day with Timmy and Tommy Full Tilt. They're really big in Ireland, huge. And I had my Irish roommate at the time, Anto B, shout out Anto B, as well.
Sure.
So if you look at all my early flyers, he's on almost all of them. So is Nate, so is Mags. So it was really built around that, and then onto a new Shut Down. But at that time, I already had the itch. I knew I wanted to keep doing it. So I'm trying to think.
Wonder Bar?
It was Wonder Bar. No, it was Church. That's what it was. So Church is really where it all started for me.
Fenway?
Because Church in Fenway.
Yep.
Because Will Raymond, rest in peace.
It's kind of like a rock type venue. It
doesn't exist anymore.
No,
it was like a rock venue. Will Raymond, rest in peace, was booking it for Crossroads Live Nation. It wasn't exclusively theirs, but that was the impression I got, that Crossroads was booking it and he was the guy. But it wasn't like it was kind of like their relationship with Once Somerville, where it's like they kind of are in but not. So it was one of those situations. So I started working with him, and he loved the idea of getting dance nights in there because he saw how they were getting really explosive all over the city, and they just had no experience doing it. So he actually got hit up by Arch Nemesis, shout out Arch Nemesis, agent, and Arch Nemesis had just opened up for Bass Nectar at House of Blues. That's how long ago that is. And he sent it to me. He goes, hey, I just got sent this act. Do you want to promote it? And I'm like, I fucking love Arch Nemesis. Absolutely. So he actually handed me that show, and I said, well, this is going to be my first big show with like a big act. You know, and I'm working with you, Live Nation, directly. What should I do? And he said, you should hit up all the other promoters in town who are doing this type of music and start trying to figure out how to tap into it. That's not just your friend circle, which I had a ton of friends at the time, thankfully. So I hit up the guys at the Brain Trust, Connor and Richard, because they were doing a lot of that weird experimental bass stuff, and they were like the kings at the time. Wobble Wednesdays sold out every week for like 2 years straight or something crazy. So I hit them up and said, hey, I'm doing an Arch Nemesis show, which is like in your lane. Like, do you want to collaborate, or do you have any tips? Can I hire you? Like, how does it? I didn't even know how it works. And then Connor Lockman, shout out Connor, was like, we're not gonna help you promote that show because I think they had another show, but you could be on our street team. And handed me a stack of flyers that right there on the spot. Classic Connor. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna promote the hell out of your shows because I want to get in good with you guys. So
that's how you do it, people.
I street teamed like crazy, like insane, and they saw it and were like, holy crap, you're like a beast with this. I'm like, I'm really hungry. Like, I'm in college, I started this business, I'm super into it, anything and everything I can do. So I sort of rose through the ranks with them, and then became, their street team coordinator, marketing manager, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't really a defined role.
No, yeah.
And then they got hired to do Wonder Bar full time again, because they were doing Wednesdays, and then they left.
Did House of Blue stuff and like bigger things.
Yeah, they did a lot of promoting for Live Nation. So they did a lot of Live Nation stuff. And that was their big thing, was marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I learned a ton of the marketing and promo.
Mm-hmm.
And then Richard Henderson, shout out, actually, he knew more about the music than I did. He was like an encyclopedia of music.
Yeah.
So, but both of those combined, that's how they were so killer.
Yep.
I learned a lot from them, and then they got hired to come back to Wonder Bar to be talent buyers for non-Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because those are all claimed college nights. And their Thirsty Thursday night is like their biggest night. So we couldn't touch that. But anyway, they got hired.
Thirsty Thursday, it's kind of like a college night. Every was it college night?
It is a college night.
Yeah, so sometimes in the club scene, you can't really touch those at clubs because they make them so much money.
Yeah.
So even what we were talking about earlier on the weekends, it's sometimes hard to get in on a weekend because it's all they have to do is pay like more of a generic DJ. And you just rack in some of these college like students, and get them drinking at the bar, and it's a big money maker for them, and they need that stuff. So yeah. Anyways, what you're saying?
Yeah. No, that's exactly correct. It's nearly impossible to get those nights because they make so much money. But this is my rise to the top. It's actually a good segue. So. They were doing the downstairs. They were trying to revitalize that space because it was basically a spillover for the upstairs for them. They didn't really utilize the downstairs to the best of their ability. So the Brain Trust guys were like, well, we're going to change that and utilize the space better. So that's how I got my weekend, because I did Friday nights downstairs at Wonder Bar, which is only like an 80 cap room. And the upstairs would have the college nights. And then what was happening is the college kids start walking downstairs because the coat check was down there. And it was in the winter months when this had started. So they'd come to check their coats and see my party and go, what's that? This is way more interesting than, well, not all of them. Obviously, some college kids just want to listen to Top 40, get wasted, and hook up. But
someone felt something deeper down
there.
Yeah,
people who had a little bit more of a developed taste, I'll say, to be nice and polite about it, were like, oh, this is really cool. And I was always at the door when I first started talking to people because I had to.
One of the best names for that, and we used to use it at the Good Life, because the Good Life is actually designed the same thing. Upstairs, like Top 40, downstairs, something different. We call it the Honey Trap, because a lot of random people would come in just to come in, but some would sniff it out and be like, oh, there's something different going downstairs, and it's a whole different experience.
Right. So I would talk it up, 2 for 1, or y'all can come in for free and just come back next time and pay, whatever. So I slowly built it, and then, that was the birth of Binary, was at Wonder Bar downstairs. I know Vcash will always correct me and say it started at church, but it didn't officially start until I got the lockdown monthly Friday night at Wonder Bar. That's when your true residency started. And then the downstairs nights started blowing out, and I said, I want to do upstairs. And they lost one of their promoters on a Friday, one of the college promoters, and said, we'll give you a shot. And I blew it out. And I have to say, probably the first or maybe even the only person to bring underground house music into a college night and completely own it.
Yeah. What do you think was like some of your success? Because you're saying like blow it out, and it's like, what elements did you do to make something blow out? Like, what were the pieces?
Sure. Well, in the very beginning, it was Facebook was big. Facebook was way more effective. Event pages were extremely effective. There was a demand for dance music and not a ton of opportunities. Now you think about them all, but even just 7 years ago, there weren't this many dance nights at all. So I had something that people wanted. I knew a ton of people in the Amherst scene which it was exploding out there.
College people.
Yeah, college kids. I was in college. My friends were in college. We all wanted to go to these nights, and I was being unique at the time. I'm not gonna say I'm being unique and playing house, but doing a house night at Wonder Bar was unique.
Yeah.
So there was a buzz about it. People were interested. Now you go and it's like, you could do Dirty Bird all day on college nights, but back then you couldn't. But the audience was starting to get there.
Yeah.
So I was at the right place at the right time. I knew a ton of people. Early binaries were all locals. There was no talent buying.
Yep.
But we just had enough friends who wanted to go out because we were in college that it clicked. But then working with Connor and Rich and learning the talent buying, the booking, the agents, and then they, helped introduce me to agents, which I've done with you, because you can't really cold call an agent.
Nope.
You kind of have to have an intro. So it was the combination of that, being unique, right place at the right time, being young, knowing a lot of people in a city, but then learning the mechanics to do it the way that I wanted to.
Yeah.
Which, binary was my baby. It was my thing. It's the one night where I don't make exceptions.
Yep.
Like, I have to like the artist and their music. I have to agree with everything that they stand for, and it's one of those things where I don't cut things. Like Evan's always on binary.
Cool.
Even if he's not physically there, he makes me a thing in advance that I can play myself.
Sure.
So I think it was having that vision, but then actually having the tools to do it.
Yep.
Which a lot of people don't get all of those things at the same time. They don't have the big friend circle and the Facebook being what it was, and having someone tell them and intro them how to do it with agents, and be in college. I mean, it was a perfect storm looking back on it. And I got lucky. Like I said, I just got lucky too. I won't not admit that. I got really lucky.
Cool. Well, it sounded like you did a lot of the right elements and stuff, and you're putting things together, and you're trying stuff out, and right time, right place. Sometimes events don't go so well.
Binary almost died. Mags can tell you in the beginning when I moved upstairs and had to start talent buying because I couldn't do locals. So I had to fill the room with acts. I took digger after digger after digger.
What do you think changed?
I learned how to talent buy better.
Okay.
I was just learning how to book acts, and I was on a nightclub on a weekend, and I was a little naive to the fees, and understanding that I actually have something that these artists want. Where when I first started, it was I need the act. Where
thirsty.
it was really I had the party.
Yeah.
Which is really valuable.
The gold. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I was saying in the beginning, artists started to seek me out after binary got developed because they're like, that's the party they need to play. But so yeah, it was just a perfect storm, right time, right opportunities, and then I just ran with it. And then Wonder Bar, I was working there, started doing more shows, which got the eye of Crush Boston, Mike O'Malley at the time, and then we were gonna do an arch nemesis show together at the Middle East upstairs, and it was in the midst of his downfall. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So I showed up. Everything was a disaster, and he was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And the owner of Crush, Ned Welberry, shout out Ned.
What's up, Ned?
I saved the show. It sold out. I made it work. Everyone was happy. And that got his attention, and he was like, O'Malley is on his way out. Do you think you would be interested in taking his place? So I did, and took over that for a while, and then I was being paid a flat fee, basically, to do it.
Cool.
But coming in as a promoter, I didn't like that, because I'm like, I get half of everything.
Yeah.
We're throwing shows. And Ned was like, this isn't like your money and your company. These shows were already booked before you came in the picture. But he said, if you want to be 50-50 partners,
throw your own show
and split it, we can.
Yeah.
And that's when I became business partners with Ned. And we started doing events at the Middle East. And then he got hired to be the GM. Sonia opened. And that's when he tapped me. When I was about to double down at Wonder Bar, Connor moved out to the West Coast, and Richard and I were gonna, maintain.
And about this time, you were becoming full-time promoter.
I was still in college, so still feeling it. Yeah, I was just graduating.
Okay.
Because I had an offer from the internship I did in psychology at the group home, and I had an offer from Carr and Richard at the Brain Trust, and then Ned made me his offer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very difficult decision. I was really upset about not being able to work with Carr and Richard because we all had become such close friends.
Yeah,
I felt
sure.
like I was betraying them.
Hmm.
But it was such a good opportunity that when you looked at it, you know, outside of these are my friends, I feel bad. It was like, this is the best move for you.
Yeah.
And they understood. Richard even said in the conversation that was the right move for
Yeah.
me. Which it was. So that's when I became a full-time salaried employee talent buyer for the Middle East, specifically for Sonia. But then Sonia kept getting delayed, and that's when I did Zuzu, was because I was on the payroll. They wanted me to do something, and I love Zuzu, as you know.
It's
as
a good
we
room.
know,
Yeah.
I fell in love with Zuzu. I worked door shifts in the beginning to understand the mechanics of the room, which is really important.
Unique. Yeah, it's unique.
It's a very unique room. It's its own thing. It's the redheaded stepchild of the Middle East. It's separate from the Middle East, which is the only room in the Middle East that's separate from everything else. It's connected by the kitchen, but nothing else.
And I want to just like throw in there too, like when Aaron says like it's a very unique room, it's you can't book a very fancy act in like a small room. And if I can describe this room, it just has a lot of quirky type things all around it, and it just has a unique vibe that doesn't fit for a fancy bottle service type act.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's on the street, which makes it very... In the Middle East is on a corner. It's very noticeable. But Zuzu, you can look in. You can see it in the corner, too, but the corner is always bands.
Yep.
But that pulls people in.
Yep.
So the same thing with Zuzu, you know, like Middlesex has the same effect. You walk by and can hear it. And, you know, they close the curtains, but you can sort of see through. But, you want to close the curtains to make some intrigue to get people in. And you don't want to feel like you're dancing in front of a window on the street.
Yeah.
So it has all these elements that make it very, very unique. It's a local sort of, you can grab college kids off the street, but also the Cambridge community itself is much different than Boston.
Yeah, totally.
So it's an interesting audience to tap into, and I absolutely loved the audience.
So fun, dude.
I love all the parties in Zuzu. Every single night was just like so interesting to me because it was all the weird, like quirky things, and the weekend slammed with Slow Louis at the time, which they have moved on.
And to give you a little perspective too, Middle East Zuzu, it's smack dab in between like a lot of colleges, MIT, Harvard, and then a lot of people end up going there because they know it's like more of a, I guess, funkier, like kind of what he was saying earlier. It's not like dress up, go downtown. It's more like let's go down like to Cambridge where there's a bunch of local restaurants and local clubs and all these unique type stores. So that brings in a certain personality too.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked the door for 3 months, like as much as I could to understand the nights. And that's when you and I had sort of talked about doing disco-ish nights, which just didn't connect at Wonder Bar. Now, looking back, I know why. You know, it's just
Different
not the right
place.
spot, right?
Yeah,
Unless you had a hot act like a Moon Boots or, you know, what did we do? Bit Funk? That one was kind of eh.
We did Bit Funk. We did French Horn Rebellion. We did... I can't remember.
I did a string, and that's when I was losing all that money.
Yeah.
Because I thought disco was going to click.
Yeah.
And it did, but I just had the right act, and then it didn't, and I realized, okay, you know, I can strike gold when I got the right act, but this is not the room for this type of music.
Yeah.
So that's when I, you know, called you and said, this is the room. This is the room to do a disco night, and I'm way too busy to do it myself, so you have to do it.
Yeah. And it worked. That's like the eclectic type personality there, and it really did blow up. And you're saying close the curtains. We opened the curtains because we want everyone to see it.
I know, I loved it, and the window, which is a big no-no. But that's one of my favorite grass-fed memories. Is one of those first summer nights.
Bubbles.
Windows open, bubbles. It was so crowded that the crowd just ended up being on the sidewalk, and we opened the windows. There was people in the trees. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, this is such a fun night. I still think about that night, and I love it. There was like, what, 50 people? I mean, the room only holds
It's
100
magic.
people. And
People,
then 50 people outside, windows open, were part of the party in there. It was amazing.
people were part of the party that were just walking past it, and it made it so organic, where it wasn't like this you have to get in tough type thing. It was more like, this is fun. This is like a fun area to be in,
Yeah.
and like that doesn't happen.
No, it was magical. That was what. That's exactly what I mean. I couldn't believe how well Grass-Fed Disco turned out.
Oh yeah.
Because that was completely the vision, and it was better than the vision.
Yeah.
I mean, and Brianna was decorating. Shout out Brianna. I mean, everything was just done so perfectly that the vibe was just amazing, especially right in the beginning.
Yep.
It definitely has changed and evolved over time, but yeah, those first couple of months, man, back when it was. You couldn't even get into it. People stopped coming because you couldn't even get it because they had to wait so long.
Yeah.
And yeah, those were because it was new, fresh, exciting, different than everything else that was going on.
Yep.
Really good people involved. It wasn't about money or popularity or doing this or that. It was truly about just creating such a fun night, and that's exactly what it was.
Yep. And like that's one of the things too, and it still was like doing great as well, and that's a tough thing to do good right at the beginning, but keep it going, because it's not just like keeping it going. There's personalities involved and there's emotions, and that's why sometimes you see like bands break up, because like you're like, why that band break up? They're doing so great, and there's very like interesting like quirks that happen like on that road, and emotions, and you never know what people are going through.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing to have those special, unique times, and just know that you're able to do it, and then maybe it'll happen again.
I hope so.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like. Switching over, like, kind of, like, to COVID, it was, like, last weekend, I was just down over at Nomad Retreat Center, shout out there, and it was nice to get together with people. I played for, like, 20 people. People kept their space. Everyone there they haven't seen each other in a while, but it was straight up, like, some of that magic, and it was so nice to, like, feel an actual event again. And once again, that was unique in its own way, and there was a special like feeling in that too. So like, it's really cool. Like sometimes you eat shit in an event. Sometimes it's one of the most beautiful experiences, and people get married within the circle, and like they do so many.
That's how I met my wife. Shout out Lydia. I met her at Arch Nemesis.
What's up, Lydia? Yeah, shout out. And yes, that's one of the big things with like, and not to put words in your mouth because this is about you, but like events bring people together, and that's a very, very special thing for fulfillment in life. Like a lot of these times, like you work jobs, but you're also looking to find fulfillment within yourself, and like I feel like events bring that for sure.
For sure, yeah. I studied psychology. I've always had a urge to help people and make them happy, and I think that's totally what music satisfies for me.
Yeah.
But then I also can be very like analytical, money driven, so that it was a good combo for me because it's like business and art and bring people together all in one, and I just gravitated toward it so hard, like immediately. I think my mother even said when I first was telling her about all these ideas, she goes, I've never seen you this excited about something. Yeah. I was genuinely like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Like, you can ask people at the time. A lot of people say that and then don't do it. But I was just so driven. I couldn't. And it's crazy to think about now because now I'm, well, not in it now, but I got so caught up that you sort of lose some of that magic in the beginning that we were just talking about with Grass-Fed. It's the same thing with the career, but then you have those nights where you're like, oh yeah, this is why I do this. Usually binary for me specifically, and I do miss that. I do. I've enjoyed the break during COVID because I've just been so busy for 5 years straight.
Yeah.
But I do miss it. I actually watched a movie about Queen with Adam Lambert as the new front.
I've heard good things.
And I was going to book Adam Lambert, I think I could say that, at Sonia, but then he got picked up to do the Queen tour. I was about to book him, which is crazy to even think about. So I watched that, and then it made me and Lydia want to rewatch Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And watching those two back to back really made me miss music and
Yeah.
like events because Queen is one of those bands that's just so iconic and gets people so excited that I was like, yeah, that's the feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
And I watching those back to back last night, I was like, ooh, I think I miss it. I miss it. I didn't feel it until I watched those, and I'm like, I do miss that.
Totally.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is gonna be the like future of like booking events like going forward? Now that we kind of like know, well, we don't know, but like there's the consensus that this is gonna happen longer than we thought, and it's gonna keep going. But events have to happen, right? Like in some way or form. Um, what do you think it will look like going forward once like we start doing events again? Like maybe it's next year, maybe it's the beginning of next year, but what do you think?
So do you mean like when we have a vaccine, like specifically mass phase 4 venues reopening?
Yeah,
or...
like do you feel like people are going to like pay extra money at the door just to compensate like all the stuff that needs to happen for a venue? And like you can talk a little bit more about it, but like you need a sound guy, you need someone at the bar, you need somebody maybe the video thing. Do you think like if you bring in a certain act and you can only have half of the people capacity, are the acts going to be cheaper, or like or you're just going to crank up the ticket prices and you think people will pay for that? What do you think?
Sure, that's interesting. It is things that I think about, but first, I don't know at all. I still talk to agents here and there. I don't look at my Middle East email since I'm laid off, but I still have my Beandream, so I still talk to agents.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's sort of feeling it out. I've heard Live Nation is going to do... Well, I know they put out that little list of things that people didn't like, but before that came out, I heard they were only doing door deals, no guarantees.
Yep.
Because you don't know.
Yep.
But then on the flip side of that, it's like, well, what artist is going to want to tour the country to half full rooms and half their pay? So there's this weird area where the Middle East size venue falls into of like, well, are they new enough that they're willing to do it? But then is anyone going to come? And if they're seasoned enough to be, downstairs size acts, are they going to come?
Yeah.
So I don't really know, to be honest with you. I've heard the idea of it'll all just be locals, which you could have a local band in the Middle East downstairs and sell 100 tickets and be fine.
Yeah.
But then there is that nut. There's a certain amount of money you need to clear just to make it sense to open the door.
Yeah.
Does the Middle East, can they recoup? I don't know. The owner has asked me personally what I think. And I said, the Middle East, everyone knows, has been having trouble for the past few years financially. The property is for sale, not the business, but the property because they own it.
Yeah.
To save the Middle East.
Important to, a lot of people think it's selling, but it's just for sale.
Yeah. So remember that the Middle East was going to be taken away and turned into high rises, and the owners bought the property to save the business.
Yep.
Really expensive, Central Square, prime time, but there's laws in Massachusetts, thankfully, that the tenants, which they were allowed to buy it instead of it getting ripped out from under them, and they did, and they saved the Middle East. But they had to take on that mortgage and property tax instead of a rent, which is astronomically higher. So, fast forward, new venue, all these expenses, and so they needed help to put the property up for sale. But to bring it back, I don't know how a business that was already not doing well would survive with less revenue. Which is when Nabil asked me, I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, you have to tell me, can you survive on that? I don't. I know some of the numbers, but not all the operating costs and the numbers I know. No, there's no way that they would survive.
Yep.
But I don't know the mechanics of the federal assistance that could happen.
Yeah.
There's a big push for independent music venues in this bill, which is great because people are starting to make noise like, hey, these places are closing left and right. Like, if you don't do something, they're all going to be gone.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that no one is helping them.
Yep.
So they said they've been getting the loans, which I got offered a loan from the SBA, and it had a 3.75% interest rate on it.
Yeah, it's tough.
And I'm like, I thankfully don't have property and employees that I need to take care of, so I didn't take it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I mean, for a place in Central Square, like the highest mortgage, rent, whatever you want to call it, possible, to be closed for over a year.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money just the loan has to be to cover those expenses. I mean, you're talking mortgage, tax, insurance. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That they're paying, and now they're gonna have interest. I'm like, you're digging the hole deeper. I don't know how that helps, but again, I don't know what they've gotten specifically.
Yeah.
I know, some of the bigger loans, not like Beandream, are really low interest rates, so that situation doesn't happen. But I don't know. And then who knows? This bill could go through, and they have handouts for venues. They want to. And I know National Independent Venue Association or whatever has been emailing people like crazy, petitions. I mean, it's in all like the Wilbur emailers, all are like, sign this petition. Aaron Grayskull, shout out Aaron, sent it around to all the Middle East people. I mean, so I know there's voices and they're being heard, but will they do anything? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be tragic if they didn't, because all that's going to be left is Live Nation venues and AEG venues, all corporate, no independent. I mean, Live Nation has said I think they're good for like 2 years without throwing a concert based off of all of the property and assets they have, that they're fine. They're going to survive. But people like me in the Middle East, it's another story.
Yeah.
Because if there's no Middle East, there's no Beandream. There's no Grass Fed. It's all done.
Yep.
I could go back to Wonder Bar, but that would really be my only option, because I've had to think about it. Yeah. I'm sure they would love to help have me back and welcome me with open arms, but that would be my own move. And I want to say I heard Wonder Bar's property was for sale.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know, man. We're not gonna survive unless something big
comes
happens.
in. Yeah. Which that's why I have faith that something will happen once they catch their wind a little bit with all this COVID it's definitely a tough scenario for a live event. That's for sure. Yeah. One thing I want to close off with, what would be one good piece of advice and one bad piece of advice you could give for people looking to get into more of the booking industry?
Sure. Good advice. I always have this. Shout out Mike Swells. I'm definitely misquoting it over the years. It's probably evolved in my head. But Mike Swells, Rise Boston, he very much did his own thing against the grain with house music and techno, very much like me. And he was friends with Antho, and he opened for Pete Bones for me at church, the Shaker, old school, humongous act, and then changed his name because he didn't like the fame and notoriety. He wanted to keep playing small clubs, and he didn't want to have to make mainstream music. Yeah. But a huge act, so big that Mike Swells was like, holy shit, you're booking Pete Bones in Boston? Like, yeah, I'll open for him.
Cool.
And took a fucking digger so bad.
Oh, man.
Wednesday night at church with an old act that you really have to know who he is to know who he is.
Totally.
And no one knew who he was. I thought putting Mike on there would help, which of course it did, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Antho was friends with him back in Ireland too, so it all sort of got put together. But I rented Mike's Zone 92. It must have been.
Yeah, mixer. It's a mixer. Yep.
Because all the European DJs demand that, and he didn't charge me for it because he felt so bad about how much money I lost.
Okay.
And he said, like, keep doing what you're doing, have your vision, and stick to it. Don't stop.
Cool.
And that is what I did. And I've told that to so many other promoters. I'm like, if you really want to do this, you have to have a vision and you have to stick to it, and you're going to take L's. You're going to take really bad hits. That's what wipes most people out in the beginning, is they just lose all their money. And they're like, that's it.
Yeah.
I fortunately didn't have that scenario because I was so successful in the beginning that I had reserves that almost wiped me out when I moved into Wonder Bar.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't have that. So that was the best advice coming from him, someone who I'd seen do
Shout
it.
out Mike.
Yeah, and then I was also actively trying to do it. And I've told that to other promoters, and other promoters have come back and thanked me for telling them that in the beginning. So I think that's the most valuable thing is if you really want to do it, have a vision, stick to it. Don't be defeated, which I guess is really generic advice. But it's really true.
It's generic, but yeah, super true. And like you lose focus, right? You're like maybe someone comes in and they lose money and like what I got to do different? What should I do? And like they try all these things and they keep failing, but really like maybe it's because you're jumping around too much because you're trying to see what they're doing, which is good, but it's really about you. People are coming for you and your unique essence. So
Exactly.
it's really good to like hone that in.
And that's what music's all about. It's about new, exciting, different. It's got to be fresh.
Yep.
That's why Grassfed was so explosive. It was new, fresh, binary, same thing. And then a joke that I make a lot with other Talent Buyer friends is be very, so was it advice of what not to do, right?
Yeah, bad advice.
Yeah, bad advice.
Bad advice, what you shouldn't do.
Don't do this. Book the acts that you really like, which I know doesn't sound right after saying have a vision and stick to it, but you need to be very careful. The more that you like the acts, it will skew your the actuality of the night.
Yeah.
Which means I really like this artist and love their music, so I overpaid.
Oh, yeah.
That happens so much, and I even know when I'm doing it. Binary happens a lot. And that sucks because that's what you want to do. You want to book shows that you love, but if you're going to do it as a business, which a lot of people, art and business don't mix, which is why I like being a promoter. But a lot of people can't do that. They can't separate it. Like when I do talent buying for Middle East, a lot of the times I listen to the music after I've made the deal, because if I really like it, it's gonna skew what the offer is. So you need to be very, very careful about your passion projects. That's why I held on to Binary so tightly, because that is my last connection to that, where the rest is a job. It's business. Which people don't like saying or hearing, but it's true. And when I'm using someone else's money, like I can't be, I love it, I gotta do it. It's like, no, this needs to make financial sense. So you need to be, I guess it's a advice of what to do and not to do. But you need to be very careful, especially in the beginning when your funds are low, of getting these acts that you truly love that other people don't.
So to even like to dive deeper into it, so it's like, pick these acts that you think will be successful and get good at predicting, and then later on, like, I'm doing pretty well, and like I just want to build this my brand towards this direction because I love it, and then maybe take a little bit of a loss, but book that act because it's for your brand and it's the direction you're going.
That's what happened when I moved Binary from Boston to Cambridge. I had to switch it all up. I was like, I'm not in Wonder Bar, I'm not in a Boston college bar, I'm in Cambridge, I'm not on the street, I'm in the back. So I had to change my booking approach for that night, which was great because I got to book a lot more acts that I really loved. But I took L's in the beginning to try and figure out the mechanics of the space and the night being in a new city, a new room, a bigger room. I mean, I had to, luckily I had the brand and the following that it worked because I'd built it so long. But I had to re-engineer a lot, and you could probably tell in the beginning that I went in a much different direction. There was a lot of Dirty Bird, younger house stuff at Wonder Bar, and then Cambridge was like, well, you got Make It New, you've got Reset. I mean, you have these
more eclectic,
iconic house nights that have been here for so long. I'm like, that's more the direction I need to go in, but I don't want to be another Reset or Make It New. I need to be different.
Be your unique self.
But going into a place that had house nights, but I had a weekend, which they don't. So that was also another thing I had to consider is I'm doing house on a weekend in Cambridge. What does
Yeah.
that mean? It's different than a Wednesday or Thursday.
Yep. That was actually one of the big things me and you have like talked about off this. Is it's really because we both been in like so many different like scenarios and different clubs and stuff, and we knew like how unique Zuzu was with bringing people in. So it was like nice to be able to be like, yeah, this is what it is. It was like the event of Grassfed. It wasn't, Grassfed was a good brand, good people, good energy, all that stuff, and then it had that natural pull of people right off the street. So it's just such a unique. All the elements work together very cohesively, and you can't do that in every different spot. It has to be the right elements have to be with the right venue. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that took me a long time to learn that the room and the city and the community, you're serving the community when you're doing art,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
So you have to really understand where you are and who your audience is, even though as a promoter you're building that on your own, but it has to gel.
Yeah.
Which is what you're hitting on, where there's a lot of things that need to gel perfectly to make a night successful. To bring it back to like Resonate, the sound system is part of that. Without that, it's not the thing,
Yep. Part of the brand.
Exactly. So all those elements go together perfectly for that vision. Yeah.
Yep.
And they nail it. But it's the same thing with Grassfed at Zuzu. It just checked all the boxes, which is why after working the door for 3 months, I knew instantly that was the spot for this disco idea.
Yep. Cool. So I want to wrap up this conversation. So I like to ask this question too. So if let's say you could transport back to your younger self, what advice, let's say your 10-year-old self, what advice would you give that Aaron now that you know what you know?
Whoa. That's deep, man. In the frame of like business or just whatever? Whatever. That's extremely difficult question. I've lived a lot of life.
You can say business, whatever, any of it.
I guess I'll try to keep it in the context of business. Man, that's extremely difficult question. Maybe I won't do it in the frame of business because I feel successful. So I don't know if I would tell myself to do anything differently than I did. But life, spend more time with people who matter to you.
Cool.
Yeah, now that I'm older and I crave that more, especially now during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think I moved really fast when I was younger and didn't take time to smell the roses, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I missed time with people that some I've lost, Will Raymond.
Yeah.
My father died when I was 18. So yeah, spend more time with the people you love, I think is what I would tell my 10-year-old self.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what we do. We do all this stuff because there's things that we're attracted to, but it also brings the relationships into our lives that that we're looking for, we want, that we feel like will, fulfill us. So
yeah.
Cool.
Oh, and just for anyone who is watching this, can you read the shirt? This sums up being a booking agent perfectly.
Let's read it. So, booking agent, we do precision guesswork based on unreliable data provided by those of questionable knowledge.
That's what being a booking agent is.
Pretty much.
In a nutshell.
Yep. So, yeah, it's good to dive deep. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have a big question mark of what is a booking agent? Well, just music in general, but being a booking agent and talent buyer / whatever else you can call it. And just giving you insight. If you're thinking about getting more involved with the music scene, this is definitely one route. There is many routes. And yeah, thank you. And where can people find you and find what you're doing?
Sure. Well, we are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but it's not very active, to be honest. I feel torn about being active
Yep.
with the company.
Yeah.
Because, well, I have nothing to promote, obviously,
Yeah.
and I'm a promoter.
Yeah.
But if you want to follow us there, if and when we come back, that
Yeah.
is where you will find my info. But that is a big question mark right now. So we'll see.
Shout out to Binary when it comes back.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Binary, Beandream Productions,
Yeah.
Middle East. Go to GoFundMe for Middle East employees too, if you are able to. They are having a very difficult time.
Oh.
If you care about the employees at the Middle East and feel so inclined, there is a GoFundMe for them.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much. Closing
Sure.
us
Thanks
up.
for having me.
Peace.